الله 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 ما لنا مولى سوى الله 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 ما لنا مولى سوى الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما. قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. صدق الله العظيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the ability to be here. So inshallah, we're looking at the final 3 verses of Surah Al-Jumu'ah. So there's a few things that I wanted to point out from the last class. Okay, remember there was a verse in the last verse after I talked about the function of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was tilawat, tazkiyah, ta'aleem, and hikmah. Hikmah was the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there's a verse wa akharina, and those who will come after them. And when I was explaining those who come after them, I had just mentioned that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam pointed out Salman Farsi radiyallahu anhu was sitting next to him in one hadith, but I left it to that. But there's a more meaning that comes out of it, because Salman Farsi radiyallahu anhu was Ajmi, he was a non-Arab. So the ulama, they compile evidences to suggest that when he says there are people who will come after them, this is a praise of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, because he's from the Ajam, and the work that he did as a non-Arab in the field of law, since he was non-Arab. The other 3 Aimma, Mujtahideen, they were Arab. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, Imam Malik rahimahullah, and Imam Shafi rahimahullah. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was the only non-Arab. But he was the founder though. He's a starter of Islamic law. The other 3 caught on to it. So there's indications that this, and the ulama, add up the ahadith, like ashabi kan nujum, like my sahaba are like stars. And then Prophet said that there will be a person from the non-Arab who will get knowledge, even if he has to go get it from Thuraya, and Thuraya is also one of the shining stars. And they add up they calculate everything. They calculate that hadith about Suraya, a shining star, and all the Sahaba are stars. And the fact that from the Imam Mujtahideen, Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was the one who took from the Sahaba as opposed to the other ones. The other ones took from the students of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. They weren't direct. Imam Abu Hanifa took from Sahaba. The other Aimma were not able to take directly from Sahaba. So if you calculate and add everything up, it does point a lot to Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. So that's something I didn't point out, so I pointed it out now. Okay. Also, there's a beautiful another thing. That's something that we left off last time. That in here there was actually very subtly, you couldn't tell, but if you think closely at it, it actually talked about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sahaba Kiram, talked about the Aimma Mujtahideen, and then it talked about the Juhal at the end, because it said وَالَّذِي بَعْثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا. Remember last week we sent in the Arabs the messenger. So we praise the Prophet. And it said, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ. He recites the verses upon them. So who does he recite the verses upon? The Sahaba Ikram. And then it says, وَآخَرِينَ, those who come afterwards, and those who will connect with them. So that is the praise of Imam Hanifa, and we can add the other mujtahideen there. And then it said the example of the donkey. The people a donkey who carries loads of books, like the Yahud, right, who thought they're close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the similitude of donkey. But when you're usually making a mockery of things, you bring up donkey. So they say that latter part about the donkey, that's the jahils. Like they don't know, I have any knowledge. Okay, and like the donkey makes all these noises, which are so disturbing. So a person who doesn't have knowledge and he speaks on religion, he's just as disturbing. His voice is so useless. You guys got it? So, but see how subtly you have to think deeply about these ayats and say that, look, Allah mentioned all the four categories: Prophet, Sahaba, Imam Mujtahideen, who we're getting all the deen from, and the last one, the donkeys. All the noise we don't want to hear. So that this was subtly mentioned. Okay. But then some people of disbelievers also try to use this verse, وَآخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ, those who come after, those who will connect. Meaning it's referring that Prophet ﷺ taught his group, but there'll be people afterwards who will also connect, and they'll be part of the same mission. The Qadiani Jamaat group, which is a worst form of kufr, they try to also take this verse. People who come later, meaning the Mirza Ghulam Muhammad took he was from the ladder, he connected. Absolutely not. Right? So, but traditionally, it's Salman Farsi. The main one is the Ajam. The Ajam took something. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is something indicated here. Okay? This is the conclusion of many ayats. And so that's it. So today we'll start. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Let's first translate the first ayah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, idha nudiya lis-salat, when you are called to the prayer of Jumu'ah, fas'aw, then go, then hasten towards, or make an effort towards the remembrance of Allah, and leave transactions. That's better for you if you knew. This is the first verse. So about first thing we have to discuss is Jumu'ah. This is ayah about Jumu'ah. The obligatory of Jumu'ah, you take it from this verse. The fact that Jumu'ah is first. Jumu'ah is mentioned in the hadith, Afdalul Ayyam. Jumu'ah is the best of days. It's the special day. Jumu'ah is also known as Yawmul Aghar, the day of brightness. Jumu'ah itself means gathering. And it was also known as Yawmul Aruba. This Jumu'ah, it was actually before Rasulullah, coming from the time of Jahiliyyah. Ka'ab ibn Luay, in Rasulullah's grandfather, maybe 6 generations down. If you look at the lineage of Rasulullah, there's a person named Ka'ab ibn Luay. 5 generations down, he used to gather people. He was a Tawheed. He was upon Tawheed. He was upon true Islam. 5 generations before Rasulullah, he started Jumu'ah, calling it a day, meaning that we want one day that we gather and we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he gathered them. So since it was a day of gathering, so he called it Jumu'ah. So he would give nasiha. Then when Rasulullah came in Mecca, Jumu'ah was still not. Jumu'ah was made far from Medina time. So before that, there was no, but they had a habit of gathering. Even in Medina, people were still gathering. It wasn't farz from the Sharia, but they were gathering from Jahiliyyah time. As you all know, in Islam, that's one of the things that Islam does. Whatever people were practicing, Islam came and made it Sharia. It civilized what was already going on. So people were already gathering. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained it that this is actually Yawmul Jumu'ah. It is the holy day. Many rules of Islam are like that. If you think about talaq, divorce, in times of Jahiliyyah, a man could divorce like 100 times, but he still keeps his wife. I think he divorces once, twice, 20, 30, 40. So Islam came and capped it off and said, no, you're playing games. You have to just 3. After 3, you can't marry her again. So now when a person divorces, he thinks so many times. And it's like he only has 3 options. 3 times give divorce. Like that. Similarly, a man would marry so many women. One man would have 10 wives, 20 wives, 30 wives. And so Islam came and civilized and said, no, only 4 you can have. So like that, many of the rules of Islam, like slavery was rampant. So I said, no, they're going to get equal treatment, just like everybody else. And there's so much reward if you free a slave. So whatever the world, the things that the world is having, it comes in and it just civilizes it. It goes, fix it like this. This will be proper. And so you can think of Jumu'ah the same way. Jumu'ah was already there. They're already gathering. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained it. Let's make it the holy day. So then it mentions that when the call of Jumu'ah is there, فَاسْعَوْا. Sa'i literally means run, but it doesn't have to always mean run when the word sa'i is mentioned in the Quran. Just like, sa'i bayna Safa wal Marwa, do we run? Well, in some part we do, but not the whole time, although the whole thing is called sa'i. Sa'i can also mean, it's just a muhawara. You know when you say, I'm running a little bit behind, were you really running? You just say the word running as an idiom, but what we mean is that an effort towards something. So sa'i means an effort. So when that call of Jumu'ah is made, there should be an effort towards Jumu'ah. Now look at this hadith. Now Jumu'ah, we should be very punctual on Jumu'ah. There are many hadith about Jumu'ah. Jumu'ah, coming early for Jumu'ah. There's one hadith that mentioned. It mentioned a couple of things. And the reward is immense. It says, dress with sunnah, come early, sit close to the imam. Sometimes people take seatings here and there, try to be in the thing, even in Jama'ah, be in the middle. Most reward is middle, then to the right, then to the left. Jumu'ah too. You come early, you prepared, you walked to the masjid. The way you can do the walking is park a little bit further so people get more easier parking. Don't always get the first parkings. Get it? Especially in Eid and Ramadan and big times. Always make that habit. So you walk. You did all these Jumu'ah, you get the reward of 1 year of ibadah. So imagine our lifespan is how much? 60 years, inshallah. 60 years strong, inshallah. Then whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us. So just imagine how many Jumu'ahs do you need to say that your whole life was ibadah, right? So each Jumu'ah, especially if you have some flexibility with your work, don't push things. Be prioritize Jumu'ah. There's so much reward. It's just one hadith. Okay, and then it says, وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعَ, and leave transactions. It just says leave selling. What does that mean? You can purchase. It says leave selling. Bay' means selling. You can't do anything. Okay, bay' means don't sell, buy, or do any other form of activity. And which adhan is this? The first adhan. Okay, it's the first adhan. Second adhan definitely, but there's also first adhan. Okay, all scholars are in agreement on the second adhan. First one, some scholars, but let's just assume for safety purposes, both adhans. When the first adhan of Jumu'ah is called, then any activities prohibited at that time. So, like if you're not coming towards the masjid, like the scholars have said, like if you're in a bus that's going towards the Jumu'ah and you did one transaction over the phone, because your bus is already going towards the Jumu'ah, then that's not prohibited because you're already going towards Jumu'ah. But if you, it got in your way, maybe it distracted you or you came later, then that transaction is haram, although you did something. Even studying a religious book. What if it's time of Jumu'ah and you opened up your Tafseer book at that time and said, let me gain some knowledge. At that time, even studying the Tafseer book will become haram. So all activities when this call is called, right, out. So just like in 5 daily salats, the men are sunnat muakkada to come out. Ladies have an option to be home. The ladies' place is at home for the 5 daily, and similarly for the Jumu'ah. That's it. Men come out with the Jumu'ah. They're obligated. The women are not obligated in that manner. But given nowadays how we are in a state of ghafla and so many distractions, the women folk also need to remember it's still Jumu'ah for them. So they should also prepare. They should get ready to pray at home. And nowadays with YouTube and broadcasts, they should put on maybe a recording so that they can feel they can hear the lecture and take some nasiha. So whichever is an authentic masjid, authentic ulama, they should put on the live. The women should have that on, or else the women will forget it's Jumu'ah if they're not also preparing and they're not getting ready for Jumu'ah. Make sense? So we have to remind them that they also should be in that mode of Jumu'ah. Send the men out, and the women should be in the mode of Jumu'ah, and then listening to their YouTube. Or if they can come to the masjid and listen to the lecture, because we need reminders. Today we're living, distractions are becoming a lot. So people are, you have to come to the house of Allah as much as possible. And then there's some indication that it's best to eat afterwards. Eat your lunch and have your qaylula after Jummah. And in the time of Rasulullah there was only one adhan. But at the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu, there were 2 adhans. So then there's ijma. Since all the Sahaba agreed, so the Sahaba ikram's ijma, gathering upon a point in the Sharia, is like Sunnat Rasul, is these Khulafai Rashidin, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali. It's also a common point people don't know. And some people who just, this is a very basic point of the deen, but usually the general public is not aware of this point. that the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sunnah of Khulafa Rashidin is one. Because the Prophet ﷺ himself declared it as one. He said, latch on to my Sunnah and the Sunnah of Khulafa Rashidin. He said, you'll see many ikhtilafat after me, but you stick to my Sunnah and the Sunnah of Khulafa Rashidin. And hold on to it with your molars, meaning hold firmly to it. So there's an ijma on this point. I'll take questions at the end, inshallah. So the Sunnah would be, what would be the Sunnah? Two azans. Okay. But the fuqaha say the first adhan is mansus, meaning the ayah of the Qur'an. The other one is qiyasi. It's more of analogical reasoning. So in ruling wise, for scholars, the first adhan's ruling and the second, there'll be slight distinct difference between the two. But khair, either way, what's prohibited is from the first one anyway. So at that time, the shops should shut. Which countries is it that the shops shut? Saudi Arabia. Yeah. So like that, that's a good practice. Good practice. Also, there's a mas'ala nowadays. One thing that people do globally, since there's people do multiple. I'm not a fan of multiple Jumu'ahs because it takes away the spirit. And I'm not sure where this is coming from, but we should all gather in one spaces. You know, Eid, Jumu'ah, and in fact, in the original in Islam used to be what, the Jami'ah Masjid. You prayed 5 daily salats in one masjid. Everybody gathered, right? The whole community together. Now, smallest place is having like 5 Jumu'ahs. I'm personally not a fan of it. I think it goes against the spirit of Islam. But sometimes what people do, like they have a shop, they're running a restaurant, and then somebody goes for Jummah, and there's one person keeps running the shop, and he goes praise Jummah, comes back, and the next person goes praise Jummah. They keep running the shop. Even that should be avoided, and there will be still some haram there. So that should not be done. Why can't, especially if it's Muslims who's running the shop, there's no need for doing that. Make sense? So the ulama have looked at this and said, have disencouraged this practice. They're like Muslims, they play that little trick with, because the masjid has 2-3 jama'ats, they can play that trick. You know, send one employee to go pray while the other one runs the shop, then the other one comes back, he goes prays the second Jummah, and so the shop stays open. So this verse of the Quran that's saying leave transactions doesn't apply for them. They should put, you know, Muslim business people should take a stance. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them barakah. They should stop for 1 hour. Everybody notices that, wow, this is Jumu'ah. Muslims close for 1 hour. How much big hit are they going to get in their sales? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them tawfiq. So we should close the shops during that time. Then that's better for you only if you get new. And the next ayah, فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةِ, then when the salah is fulfilled, فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, then spread in the earth, وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ, and seek from the bounty of Allah, وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا, and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly, لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ, so that you become successful. So the encouragement that when you finish Jumu'ah, now go back to work. Like it's literally saying go back and go get from the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this ayah, obviously the Salafus Salihin, the pious, would take it so literally. They would actually literally go back, because even if they didn't have to, but they would go. Like there was one scholar in Darul Karachi. He had a small shop, and because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that go get from the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he made it a point that after his Jummah Salat, he was an imam, but he would go and go sit in his shop. That I'm going to sit in my shop till Maghrib, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked me to go back to work. Also, you know, the dua of exiting the masjid is what? Because if you just look at this verse and you don't connect it to the previous one, it's saying when you finish salah, then go into the earth and وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. Right? Go seek from the fadl of Allah. That's why the dua of exiting the masjid is Allahumma inni as'aluka min fadlik. Okay? So I think that might be the connection here. Allahu alam. But I think that's probably why that dua is there. Oh Allah, I ask you from your fadl. Okay? And remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? With your tongue, with your actions. So go back to work, just remember Allah, to pray 5 times a day. And then usually a sign that a Muslim is on the right track is what? That he's praying 5 times a day. I was mentioning this earlier. Yeah, the scholars have said, like, if you want to know, like, you know how with children, how much tarbiyah are you going to do? How much are you going to train them? If you know that they're praying 5 daily salah, is generally a sign that everything is good. It's hard to pray 5 times a day, to disobey. Like it's impossible to have disobedience of Allah and the 5 daily prayer. You can't keep up with both. Allah subhanahu mentions this in the Quran. Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Salah prohibits from bad acts. Like it stops a person from bad acts. It's hard to be able to pray 5 times a day and then do wrong. Okay, So a good hallmark for ourselves and for our children is to see if you're praying 5 times a day. If you're not praying 5 times a day, you have to work it up. You have to work on it to get to pray 5 times a day. Okay, so pray 5 times a day and then go to get from the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly. How do you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? With your tongue. You can remember it with your heart, right? You can remember it with your actions, that you always do things in a way that only that's pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, that's that. Then the last verse. وَإِذَا رَأَوْا تِجَارَةً أَوْ لَهْوًا انفضوا إِلَيْهَا وَتَرَكُوكَ قَائِمًا قُلْ مَا عِندَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ مِنَ اللَّهْوِ وَمِنَ التِّجَارَةِ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. And when they see some merchants, وَإِذَا رَأَوْا تِجَارَةً. Let me give you the context of this verse, and then we'll translate after. Prophet ﷺ was one time giving a khutbah in Jumu'ah, and some trade came. And then when the trade comes, usually at that time to make an announcement, they would have somebody, some kind of amusement, some kind of noise, and it's not like a caravan has come with products. And so when the Sahaba looked, they looked that way and they saw it, so they left. And Prophet ﷺ was still giving the khutbah, but they went. So this verse came to tell them that that what you left, Rasulullah ﷺ was giving a khutbah, and then you went for the thing. But just in the defense of the Sahaba, the Sahaba of the best generation, is that when in the verse where it says, are you going towards business? And it says the word here, lahav. There's two types of playing. La'ib means games, and lahav means that a little bigger than game, but like amusement. Okay, the word lahav is used. But let me give you another meaning of lahav. Generally, if you look at the translations of the Quran, la'ib means like basic games, and then lahav is a more upgrade version of games. That's one way of translation. Or just some people say la'ib is games and lahav is also games. Or we translate lahav as la'ib as games and lahav as amusement. But even a better definition of lahav is anything that puts you in ghafla. Anything that takes you away from Allah is what? Ghafla. You know, like nowadays with social media, endless scrolling, and some people get caught up with different things. That's all part of the lahav. It may put you in ghafla, right? You end up wasting time. Anything that makes you not remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, makes you waste time, is called what? Lahav. So the Sahaba Ikram got distracted and they went to that caravan. But then when the Quran refers to them that you went, it goes, you went for the tijara. Because obviously, if you know Sahaba are the best of generation, how are they going to get attracted by some amusement? It must have been because they have to work to earn for their families, and they just saw that they're like maybe the business caravan had just arrived. You get it? So in just trying to defend them. So on the one hand, giving us the episode that Rasulullah was giving khutbah, Sahaba heard a noise, they heard some amusement, they went that way, and then the Quran goes, did you leave Rasulullah just standing in one spot while you went there? But then in their defense, in the Sahaba's defense, oh, you went for the business. Like that. So this is how this verse, is mentioned. So let's translate. Or let me just read this footnote here, about the context. Once the Holy Prophet ﷺ was delivering the sermon of Friday prayer, when a trade caravan came with some merchandise, in order to attract customers, it had some amusement as well. Some of the audience left the mosque and proceeded towards the merchandise. This verse was revealed in that context. Okay, and also we should remember, everyone, when you leave the masjid, when you come to the house, come with, like in Urdu language, we say ihtimam. Come with, nice preparation. In the sense, we should dress well to pray before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Come with preparation. Leave with respect. Don't even leave like running. Sometimes people even have a nice habit of leaving the phones in the car and stuff like that, right? So do this, come with ihtimam. Come with like this special prep for the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah give us tawfiq. So that's it. Let's translate this last verse. وَإِذَا رَأَوْا تِجَارَةً. So when they see business, when they see business, أو لهو, or amusement, انفضوا إليها, they go towards it. وَتَرَكُوكَ قَائِمًا, and they leave you, O Prophet ﷺ, standing. Say to them, Prophet ﷺ, مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ, that which is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, خَيْرٌ, is better مِنَ اللهو, than lahav. I've already explained what lahav was, right? وَمِنَ التِّجَارَةِ, and from business, right? Being with the Prophet ﷺ is superior. وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best giver of sustenance. Meaning that, so one lesson we can learn from this, that when you stay in the masajid, when you're doing ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking ilm, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the best rizq you can imagine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gonna, don't think that by you running from the masajid that you're gonna get best rizq. No. When you're here, when you're serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of providers. He will provide the best sustenance for you. Makes sense? So don't need to feel that when we're doing the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that now we're losing out on our sustenance. No, Allah is the best provider of sustenance. So stay focused on your ibadah and in your seeking the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the verses. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us their true, give us the ability to practice upon them. Grant us all the anwarat and barakat of these verses and their true understanding. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.